Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today to listen and learn from some fantastic, esteemed colleagues that we have been able to galvanise as part of the Nursing Now Nightingale Challenge Global Experiences. I'm really excited to be the Nightingale Challenge Programme Director. It's a fantastic place to be, and I've learned so much over the last year or so about the power and potential of early career nurses and midwives, and you're going to hear lots more about how people are really taking this agenda to the next level in countries this morning. We've got Australia, we've got Karen from Australia, we've got Captain Usher from India, we've got Jan Adams from New Zealand, we've got Roshin from London in England, and we've got Adela from Spain. So a fantastic lineup of speakers that is going to, I know, inspire, entertain and inform us all about the fantastic work that they've been doing around this agenda. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over now to Australia, and we've got Karen Chukri, who is the Director of Nursing at Sydney. Over to you, Karen, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lisa, and welcome everyone to the webinar. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully that has worked. Okay, so thank you for having me, and thank you to the organisers of Nursing Now for asking Southeastern Sydney, in particular Prince of Wales, to share our experience today. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm presenting on today, the Gadigal and Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and those of the future. So as Lisa said, I am the Director of Nursing at Prince of Wales Hospital in Sydney, and that's a role that I'm really, really proud to be in, and have been in this role now since early March 2019. Prince of Wales is very dear to me. It has had a very special place in my career. It's where I started in the early 90s as a first-year registered nurse and spent the first 18 years of my career here, working clinically before moving into a management pathway. I feel really privileged that as a young nurse here at Prince of Wales, I was given a lot of opportunities to develop myself both professionally and personally, and then made the decision to start within nursing management. It would see me over a number of years move into different roles here at Prince of Wales, but it was the advice I received from my mentor that actually said to me, you need to spread your wings, you need to leave Prince of Wales and go and explore other hospitals and other contexts and where nursing can really make a difference, but really explore the type of leader that you want to be within nursing. So I did that for a number of years, worked in a variety of other hospitals in Sydney, and here I am today, back after 6 to 7 years out in other spaces, back here as the Director of Nursing and leading the nursing workforce here. So it's a really proud moment for me to do the full cycle as a first-year registered nurse and come through now and lead the profession. So it's wonderful to be here today to share that experience with you. I will be forever grateful for the mentors and the leaders that I had around me as an early and young emerging nurse, because I feel that it's those people that really helped shape and encourage me to become the nursing leader that I am today. So just a little bit about where we are. Prince of Wales is one of 8 hospitals within the Southeastern Sydney Local Health District. You can see us there in the middle, but we do stretch from the Sydney CBD all the way down to the southern area, down in Sutherland and Helensburgh, and we're in the middle there, just on the east coast, and 5 minutes down the road is the beautiful beach there called Coogee Beach. So a very lovely location. So our people in the district, we are a very diverse population that Prince of Wales and our hospitals serve. You can see that over 40% of our population are born overseas and 35% of them speak a language other than English. We also have just over 8,000 Aboriginal people that we provide healthcare for. So it is quite a diverse community that we have. So just a little bit before I talk about Prince of Wales, I wanted to share with you Southeastern Sydney Local Health District's approach to the challenge, because it has been a journey and we have had to adapt and shape our direction through COVID-19. But I guess I feel really privileged to work in this district. As the nursing and midwifery executive here, have always valued the professional development of nurses and midwives, and they have had a strong focus on the development of leadership, with investment both financially and strategically in the delivery of leadership programs with one of our local university partners, as well as the Clinical Excellence Commission, which is a statewide body. And that's been occurring for over the last 12 years. And that's because we've had a very strong nursing leader who has always valued nursing and midwifery leadership development and appreciated the impact that that can make on healthcare delivery. It was therefore no surprise for me that our District Director of Nursing, Kim Olsen, grabbed the opportunity to join the challenge, because it's fundamentally one of the key values that she role models in her leadership of the Directors of Nursing across the 8 hospitals. And so the things that we have done there on the screen, I think it's been really good that we've had a governance committee across with all of the 8 directors of nursing that come together monthly with other key nursing leaders and look at how we could provide programs that would meet the Nightingale Challenge criteria. And we've actually now identified 14 nursing and midwifery development programs available to our staff. 3 of them are also external. We've had a really big focus on our communication strategy, and we've been really developing the virtual strategy that we use, and a number of social platforms like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We have a newsletter now where we share regular updates around our Nightingale Challenge participants. But the other part of our model is really the engagement of our older and more experienced nurses. And we've had a series of videos called What Would I Tell My Younger Self, which is really that second half of the model, where we have our participants and our young and emerging nurses, but we also have those more experienced nurses as the role models and mentors that will assist them along their leadership journey and their ongoing development. So that's a little bit of a nutshell from a district point of view, what is in place. From our Prince of Wales point of view, just to highlight that we have approximately 1,400 nurses here working across 42 inpatient and outpatient specialties and wards. Over 400 of these nurses have been invited to take part in the challenge. Our average age of our workforce here is 38, and we have a male to female ratio of 1:4, which really we do have quite a young workforce. We also have just over 960 undergraduate nursing students come here each year for their clinical placements as part of their 3-year undergraduate program. And every year we employ 60 first-year registered nurses once they graduate. So it is quite a young and emerging workforce in our facility. So what I wanted to showcase this afternoon or with you is a number of our programs that have either been developed in view of the Nightingale Challenge philosophy and principles, or were in existence before, and we've just really enhanced those and encouraged a younger group of nurses to come forward and have these opportunities. And I guess the first one I wanted to share was the Emerging Nursing Unit Manager program. It's the first program we've run in 2020. We did all the planning pre-COVID, and we commenced in late January. So we're really pleased that we were able to continue this program. It was a program aimed to prepare nurses to take on the leadership role of a NUM within a unit. It's a management role that really has operational and strategic responsibilities for the delivery of care, as well as financial, quality and safety, and so on. And so this program is a 12-month program. We were overwhelmed with expressions of interest, and we have 13 participants on the program, and we've joined with one of our other local hospitals, Sydney Eye Hospital, and we've been doing this together. So over the course of the 12 months, the participants have experienced a monthly workshop program which aims to develop their skills and knowledge in the key functions of the role of a nursing unit manager. They then have had a week of shadowing where they've shadowed myself as the Director of Nursing, a co-director, patient flow, staffing office, the Clinical Practice Improvement Unit and nurse education, where they get to experience for a day firsthand what those roles entail and what a day in the life of those people might feel like and look like, and experience that leadership. They also then have monthly mentoring sessions with a more experienced NUM, where we've linked up the participants with a NUM each, and they have those opportunities one-on-one. So this program is something we're really proud of. We have also been able to offer each of the participants at least one opportunity to be seconded into an acting position, and some of them have had multiple opportunities. And that's where they start to cement the skills and knowledge that they've been learning in the program in everyday practice. So it's something that we will be continuing into 2021 with a new cohort. This is one of our emerging NUMs, Brenton. This is an example here of a Facebook post where all of the Nightingale Challenge participants have been interviewed and then profiled on Facebook to the rest of the community. So I think this is just one of his answers to a question around what motivated him to join the challenge. And I think it's really key there around the networking and being that point of connection. This is another Facebook post highlighting another one of our challenges, Pamela, who's a CNS. And I put this one up because what this one demonstrates, I think, is another program we run here called the Emerging Leadership Workshop, which is a one-day event where staff are able to come out of their clinical context and start to explore and have some self-discovery around leadership. It's a very beginning program for them where they have a day out. But I think her comment here when she was asked about leadership development is about the stories that more senior and other nursing leaders tell and provide, what a difference that can make to the emerging nurse and how they can start to relate to that and what that might mean to their own development into the future. This is a body of work as well that we've been persevering through COVID-19 because we feel that it's really captured the essence of nursing through a pandemic as well, which was obviously an add-on because we started this work at the beginning of the year. This is a body of work that we aim to shine a light on the work of 200 Prince of Wales nurses over the course of this year, and we've collected 209 diary entries of nurses. We've asked them to write a short diary around what's their day, what's been important to them in their day in relation to providing care, or what they've observed in relation to quality and safety, the difference they've made, or compassionate care. And with those 209 entries, we've now partnered with a university and one of the professors there, and we're performing a thematic analysis on these entries, and we're actually going to do a comparison and contrast with Florence Nightingale's Notes on Nursing publication to see 200 years on, what does nursing have in common with Florence's time and what are the differences. And we can already see some really important themes emerging. But a number of our Nightingale Challenge participants have provided a diary because they saw it as a way of expressing themselves and what nursing meant to them. And so it's been really, really refreshing to read those entries and ensure that they're included in this publication. But this one's a bit of a watch this space because it's in progress at the moment. I won't go through this, but these are some of the diary entries. They're short reflections, as you can see, but I guess when you have them compiled and able to put a reflective space around them, they can actually open up some really in-depth conversations around what nursing means to our staff and what it means to patients. So some of them are very, very powerful, but I think as we go on, what I'm getting out of the thematic analysis is really, really important around how I strategically position our next steps here for the workforce as the Director of Nursing. And I think that's really about opening up and listening to the workforce and the emerging younger nurse as they come forward. This is our event in October, My Brilliant Career in Nursing at Prince of Wales. And because of COVID, we've had to radically change the way we connect with our workforce and have moved very swiftly, way beyond my capacity at times, with technology, and opened up a virtual platform every month where we have different events and nursing grand rounds and transition Thursdays for our younger nurses. But this event is a hospital-wide event, and it's an opportunity where we share some of the diary entries and have a reflection on those with the professor from University of Technology, as well as create a video which highlights and shares the stories of Prince of Wales nurses. And we're using a lens around art and culture and nursing, the diversity of nursing, and our overseas nurses who have come to Australia to work and the differences they see between their home and in Sydney at Prince of Wales, as well as some of our award winners over this year, and looking at some of the unique nursing specialties that don't often get profiled, such as corrective health nursing and clinical trials nursing. So I'm really looking forward to that video. And the faces on the screen here, many of them are part of the Nightingale Challenge, and they're really keen to tell their story on the video. But really it's highlighting what nursing can bring to you both personally and professionally, and the diversity that we have available to us. Clinical supervision for our leaders. This is that other part of the model I talked about earlier. We often, we have really strategically worked with the district to ensure we have education and development programs for the more experienced nurse, so that they feel equipped to work with our younger nurses through mentoring models, coaching, clinical supervision at the bedside, and providing feedback on clinical practice, and then being able to run more reflective supervision groups outside and away from the bedside. So this also is really, really important that we invest in their development, so that they can role model and share their experiences as well. This is something that's very new and hot off the press, which is something we started in 2019 and just had a 6-month delay. But we're now up and going, and this is in a program designed by the clinical nurse specialists here. We have 200 clinical nurse specialists in our workforce, and they came together in 2019 and told me what their development needs were. And so we went away and we've developed this program, which is now up and going, but it's really looking at leadership development. We're looking at their facilitation, who they are as a leader, their ability to clinically teach, their role in providing supervision and feedback, and then extending into project and research skill development. But this is a really important program for us, and something that we've encouraged through the Nightingale Challenge. That's just another example of our calendar, and highlights the same thing. And then just to finish, we have an ongoing commitment around growing our leadership team and the leadership capacity across nursing at Prince of Wales, and the opportunities that hopefully I've shared today demonstrate how we're really getting behind that support and development of our workforce, and developing the courage for nurses to be the leaders they want to be. We're working hard at continuing to expand our virtual network and how we adapt to the virtual platforms and connect with our workforce, so that we can still come together and have opportunities. And then our vision is around transforming person-centred care together through compassionate leadership as our vision here at Prince of Wales. So that's in a nutshell. I hope I haven't rushed too fast, but we've been really fortunate that we've had an executive, Don, that has signed up for the Nightingale Challenge, and we've really got behind it here, and we've had some really fantastic feedback from our Nightingale Challenge participants. That's all from me.
Wow, Karen, thank you. What a brilliant start we've got off to. That the passion and commitment that you've clearly put into the Nightingale Challenge in your organisation is just mind-blowing. It would be really great to share those videos about, did you just remind me, was it the future me or the young me? I really like that idea, and what's really struck me about what you've been talking is how we can own the image of nursing. So often we feel on the other end of the image of nursing, it's portrayed not in the light that many of us would like it to be seen. But the work that you're doing is really saying to these future nurses, nurse leaders, you can own this, you can shape the image, and it's a big task. And there's lots of debates around the image and the shape of nursing and what people perceive it to be. But stepping into that space sounds brilliant, and partnering with a university to really understand it and get that academic credibility feels like a brilliant place to make sure it doesn't get lost along the way as the next thing happens, you know, with us, as it does when you're dealing with healthcare. So thank you so very much. And just a quick question, really, we'll do more questions later, but do you plan to continue the Nightingale Challenge and sort of bed it into your learning and development so that it becomes normal business maybe in 2 to 3 years' time?
Yes, so our emerging NUM program and our emerging leadership program and everything I've shown today will be ongoing.
Fantastic. That's great. That's so brilliant to hear. But we didn't want this to be a one-off initiative, but for it to really become normal business as time goes on. Thanks again, Karen. Look forward to more questions and answers with you later on in the webinar. Brilliant. So Captain Usher, again, thank you for being with us again. It's brilliant to have India represented, and just to say, India has been amazing in terms of recruiting loads of nurses and midwives from all over India to join the Nightingale Challenge. We're incredibly proud of the work that you're doing, Usher, and really look forward now to hearing about how you've developed your program in your organisation. Thank you.
Well, namaste. I'm a very proud Indian and even more proud nurse to be representing the nursing fraternity and the country on this wonderful global platform. At the outset, I thank the organizers of the Nursing Now, and my special appreciation to Miss Lisa, who I had the privilege to meet during her visit to India, and of course, Miss Hannah for all the logistics and getting us up here on time. I would first like to describe my country before I move on to the Nursing Now Challenge. It's a spectacular country that pulsates with a mix of tradition, people, and religion. And everybody knows about the diverse culture and the religious format it follows. The beautiful snow-dusted peaks of the northern mountains to the sultry, sun-washed beaches. India has a dramatic terrain and it's incredibly breathtaking. The exquisitely carved temples, forts, churches, mosques just magnificently rise out from its landscape. It is one of the countries where the greatest men and women on earth have walked this earth. Mahatma Gandhi, Aryabhatta, Ramanujam, Mother Teresa, wonderful people who've left legacies behind. One of the largest countries in the world with about 29 states, 7 union territories, 22 languages. So you can imagine the diversity it brings in. More than 1 billion population, where 17.7% of the world's population is in India alone. Literacy rate being about 77.7%. But India has seen significant socioeconomic progress. It has got about 3.07 million registered nurses today, and 2/3 of the health workforce of India are nurses. And we all know that Indian nurses are sought world over. They work across the world, and that's the enterprising spirit nurses bring in. India has unique challenges and unprecedented opportunities. This entire decade has been a great journey. We are very proud of the significant outcomes we have achieved towards mortality, morbidity, life expectancy, and substantial progress in healthcare. And this could not have happened without the contribution of nurses. There's been a giant leap. Infrastructure, technology, innovation, research, equality, access, affordability, placing India on the map of global medical tourism and a much sought after healthcare destination of the world. India's healthcare is visioning mega progress in terms of the Ayushman Bharat, the National Rural Health Mission, Arogya India, transformation into a digital era where we need to augment the core capabilities of the healthcare workforce, especially the nurses. There are a lot of reforms in pipeline for the healthcare sector, and I'm glad the nursing participation will be significant. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought nursing into the forefront. A lot of limelight and a spotlight on nursing. And what else to welcome? The WHO declaring 2020 as the year of the nurse, and this wonderful Nursing Now Nightingale's Challenge program comes in just at the right time as an apt concept. And I'm so glad that India has participated with great enthusiasm into the Nightingale's Challenge. At the same time, I admit that our progress has been a little slow because of the COVID situation that we are on. And you know that we are inching very close to become one of the top ranking COVID countries of the world. Sadly, yes, but nurses have played a significant role. And I'm glad that the Nightingale's Challenge focuses on the younger population of nurses, less than 35 years. And I see great excitement and enrollments into the nursing program here across many hospitals, the best hospitals in public, private, and including institutions. And I, for one, belonging to one of the largest healthcare providers of the country, have always believed that it is time for nurses to move from the bedside to the boardroom. And it is important to coach, mentor the next generation. And I'm glad to say that when Professor Lisa and Lord Nigel came to India, they got to meet most of the talented nursing heads of the country. It was a room full of participants who've gone back with commitment to be a part of the Nightingale's Challenge and enroll youngsters into the Nightingale's program. I see great interest in the management to roll out this concept and this program for leadership for change. More than anything, I was very excited when I met the president of the Indian Nursing Council, who has rolled out the Nightingale's Challenge in November 2018. None other than the Minister of Health had commissioned the program. This is tied up with the International Council of Nurses. There is an MOU signed where 30 participants who will be handpicked from across the country will become the participants. They will undergo a 6 days training. Later, once again, 4 months thereafter, they would further go through 6 days training, and they will become the master trainers who will train 6,000 participants through the country. Unfortunately, because of the international flight bans, we could not get the resource to come to the country and train the master trainers. But I'm sure once the ban is lifted, we would actively pursue a commitment towards the Nightingale's Challenge. I work for Apollo Hospitals, one of the most enterprising healthcare providers in this part of the country, where the logo is a nurse. This was envisioned 37 years ago by the legendary visionary leader, Padma Vibhushan, Dr. Pratap C. Reddy. And I'm so proud to see that nurses form an integral part of every decision-making process in the healthcare system of Apollo. And I'm also glad that all the Apollo hospitals have enrolled into the Nightingale's program. And there are leadership programs being enrolled where these young nurses are going through external and internal classes with expert faculty. They are given the opportunity to attend most of the important meetings of the hospital. They are taught medical excellence, financial excellence, innovation, research, time management, team management, people management, things which they never thought they would learn by just being a bedside nurse. There are buddy mentor programs in the country where senior leadership have owned youngsters and they're being coached to take on leadership roles. I'm glad to see the enthusiasm both at the elderly and the young population that makes the nursing workforce in our hospitals. I think a lot of social media interactions are happening within the country, and I'm sure very soon we will host all our activities up on the Nursing Now Nightingale's Challenge website. I spoke to Ms. Henna regarding this just last week. So we would pass our work onto the virtual platforms. We've had these little badges that nurses carry as people who have enrolled into the Nursing Now program. I think there is a lot of excitement. It is the year of the nurse. Unfortunately, we are caught up in the COVID duties, but I'm sure in the days to come, our participants will see significant contribution to the entire program. And I'm glad that this came in at the right time because we understand today, especially after the COVID impact, it is important to involve nurses in leadership roles and in policy making. And there is an acute paucity of nurse leadership in the country because the best of talent leaves the country very early in their careers. And I'm sure this program will drive meaning. It will bring an evolution of a kind of revolution in nurses becoming nurse leaders by design and not just by default. I'm sure this program will bring in a lot of glitz and glamour into the profession because nurses will then become the advocates who would talk about nursing as a profession to those who desire to be part of the profession. I'm also sure that this program will enable us to create leadership at a very young stage of the career, and the due recognition and reward that the nursing profession so richly deserves will come back into the profession. And we don't wish to stop it here. We would continue this much after the program is called off, or maybe we're not part of it at a larger level, but we will make leadership program an integral part of our career pathway for young nurses. So that's the meaning Nursing Now and the Nightingale's Challenge brings in. And I'm glad it comes into the country at the right time. It's connected a lot of organization. It's built enthusiasm. It is talking to each other. So it's a great platform, and I'm glad that every organization will come up with something very innovative in shaping up young nurse leaders. And I have so much to thank to the Nursing Now team for enabling us to do this. Over to you, Ms. Lisa.
Well, Captain Usher, again, I've got goosebumps. It was so moving, your passion and tenacity and evidence that you've really managed to get the voice of young nurses across your organisation, and then that's reverberated across the country, which is demonstrated in the amount of people that are engaging in India in the Nightingale Challenge. So I cannot thank you enough for this. And again, similar to Karen, it feels like you're also starting to shape the image of nursing and what future nurses and people that are interested in coming into this profession can and should be doing. Just one quick question now. How did you manage to get the whole of Apollo engaged in the Nightingale Challenge? And if you was to give a tip, what would it be? I mean, it's just fantastic. You've got the board to the ward to the community all engaged within this initiative.
Well, I think first of all, Apollo is a very enterprising organization when it comes to nurses. I said this, that the logo itself stands testimony to the fact that they always have wanted to invest into the nursing professionals, because I think we must be, I'm not stating for sure, but we must be one of the organizations that's got the nurse on the brand logo. Number two, I think what the Nightingale's Challenge did was to bring in Miss Sangeeta Reddy, who is our joint managing director, as the convener for the Nightingale's Challenge and the Nursing Now program into the country.
Yeah.
Voice to reckon with. She's also the member of the Federations of Commerce and Indian Chambers, which is a large industry house that drives healthcare reforms. So I think it was brilliant to bring the top-notch people into talking about the nursing aspect of the Nightingale's Challenge. So it drives down to the team. And people like us who stayed back in the country, the many of them, my colleagues, I'm a member of one of the Association of Nurse Executives of India, the Trained Nurses Association of India, the Indian Nursing Council, are all progressive. And we are going through this reform stage. So I think people are willing to connect. There's a will to change the profession.
Amazing. So I mean, that goes to the heart of some of the objectives of the Nursing Now and the Nightingale Challenge, which is how do we influence the influencers that aren't nurses? We speak often to ourselves and don't get very far, but if we can influence non-nurses, that's a brilliant example of that happening and the impact that is creating. And also, I guess timing is another maybe tip or message to people, that it feels that the timing has been right for India with the reforms, with the things that are going on, and probably COVID as well has put the spotlight for sure on the power of nurses and what they can do and how important they are to keeping people safe. Thanks again, Captain Usher. So wonderful to hear you talk so passionately about this, and delighted that it's being bedded into your thinking and it's not just a one-off initiative, because that's so important now as we start to move into the next stage of this programme. Thanks once again. We now go over to New Zealand, to the wonderful Jan Adams, and I think Jan, you've got some snow heading your way. Is that right?
It is, Lisa, so we here, so yes. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Warm greetings to everybody on the call from New Zealand. We're actually in spring, but we've got a blast coming up from the Arctic, so our temperatures have taken a bit of a drop in the last couple of days. Just following on from Usher is a little bit, well, it's very humbling, and I'm also taking you from a very large country, a very densely populated country that Usher's described, to a country at the bottom of the Southern Hemisphere, just round the corner from Australia, called Aotearoa, or New Zealand. We've got a population of 4.8 million people spread across the North and the South Island, and the area that I work in is primary care. And so we're going from sort of hospital-based programs to something that's been a different challenge for me. My background is I'm a nurse and midwife. I've worked in acute care most of my life. The last 5 years I worked for Bupa as their managing director for aged care, both in Australia and New Zealand, and then sort of semi-retired last year and went back to work part-time to a primary care organisation as their strategic nursing director. When I was with Bupa, I'd signed Bupa globally up to the Nightingale Challenge, and I think that they've sort of continued down that pathway. Fast forward to November last year when I started my new role, and talked to the managing director for our organisation, which is called Pinnacle Midlands Health Network, about Nursing Now. Fortunately, she's a nurse too, so she was very passionate that we would join. So we are a network organisation, a primary health organisation it's called in New Zealand, and we serve a local population of over 620,000 residents in 4 different regions. So a lot of our general practices, we have 86 general practices spread across quite a wide locality, and a lot of these are GP owner practices. We have a lot of nurses in those general practice areas that have probably worked in quite a traditional model, and one of our beliefs is that we need to prepare our nurses now for the future to really serve the communities in a very different way, and to be confident as nurses, to be practice owners, to be nurse prescribers, which they're starting to do, and move on to nurse practitioners, but also to be nurses that are engaged in a leadership way, to help shape and influence nursing and healthcare across New Zealand. So our desire to connect with our nurses and sign up for the Nightingale Challenge stemmed from, really, we want to make a difference to the nurses that we employ and we will employ into the future, and make sure that we're creating and developing really good role models that have opportunities to grow with their leadership knowledge and their leadership management skills as well, and also will seek to coach and influence new nurses as they come through. So like everybody, COVID came, and as we were about to start the programme. And we had planned a series of events. We were going to do some formal training, some formal study days out of practice within sort of the heart of the organisation, and do a number of different things that, because of COVID, we had to change. But the first thing we learned about COVID was I set up a weekly Zoom meeting with all of our nurses in practice to see how they were doing, what they needed, and what struck me was the learning the learnings they had from their experience with COVID and what they shared with each other. And so we rapidly changed our approach and thought, actually, we're going to do a very virtual approach to the Leadership Challenge. And we also we talked to them extensively about the Nightingale Challenge and under 35s. And we have a mix of nurses, mix of aging nurses, and I'm an aging nurse, and the older nurses over 35 said, please don't exclude us. So the first thing we did was we signed up for the Nightingale Challenge, but we decided we would go down a pathway that we run a parallel programme. So we had the Nightingale Challenge for the under 35s, and we had the Pinnacle Challenge for the over 35s, so that nobody felt left out. Because what we heard very clearly was all of our nurses, whether they were younger or older, had a desire to learn and a need to know more about how they could grow and develop as nurses and as nurse leaders. So that was one of the first things that we did. We had constructed a program based around sort of leadership management, very similar to some of the examples that Karen gave. We wanted to teach them about leadership and management, what it is to be a good nurse manager, how beliefs and values shape you as a person and shape you as a nurse when you're dealing with your patients and when you're dealing obviously with your colleagues. We wanted them to understand the role that culture plays within an organisation, and remembering that within their world, their smaller practices, they may have, up to say 20 people depending on the size of the practice, but the culture within that practice is important for them in terms of their own journey and how they interact and how they learn. We wanted them to understand interpersonal skills and knowledge and the relationship that has around EQ, EI, change management, and how to be confident about understanding change, the need for change, and how to lead change either in a large organisation or a small organisation. How they, as a nurse, could learn skills to lead and manage clinical teams, and how they needed to understand to navigate politics, both with a small p and a large p, within different organisations. Because we're also mindful that if we're preparing nurses for the future, they may not always stay in a small general practice. They may move on to larger organisations, perhaps into sort of ministry roles where policy and politics is such a key part of what they would do. So we wanted them to have an understanding of that. We also wanted to talk to them and give them some sessions around the importance of the patient voice, and particularly in a general practice primary care where you're working in a different way with patients, them understanding how to engage patients, hear the patient voice, and influence change as a result of listening to patients. And then the final thing we wanted them to do was to teach them some skills around resilience and self-care, because for all of us, life has many stresses. This was an extremely stressful year and has been for them as nurses in the front line, and particularly for primary care, because in New Zealand, primary care has been the main point of contact for people with COVID. People are going to swabbing centres run by nurses. They're going to the GP and seeing the nurses where they've treated patients, sort of done swabs out in car parks. They've immunised in car parks and vans and all sorts of different and creative ways to ensure that primary and community care has continued. So our nurses across our organisation were very critical to us in terms of supporting them, understanding them, but also creating a way that we could continue on the Nightingale journey and help focus them away from just the day-to-day of particularly COVID and chronic disease management that they were dealing with. So what we did was we talked to our nurses and said, what would work for you? We would like to do this via Zoom. So we set up a series of leadership talks. We delivered the first lot over a 10-week period. It ran for an hour every Thursday evening between 7 and 8 p.m. And that was the time that nurses chose themselves, because a lot of these people are young women with families. So it was the time that the kids had gone to bed, the elder children had done their homework, and they could actually take some time, sit down with a cup of coffee and engage. And we recorded the sessions and we've got a special place on our website where they can also go in and review the videos so that they can continue if they have some sort of things that they didn't remember, they can go back and see the videos. What we did was we used senior leaders across the organisation, some nurses, some non-nurses, to give each of the talks. So we wanted them to see that all of us had been on a journey. We didn't start out as directors of nursing or managing directors or whatever, that we had all been on a journey, and we wanted our people in senior levels to inspire our younger nurses to think, these are the role models I want, these are the role models I need, and I can do this too. And it's interesting that sort of Karen talked about the diaries of young nurses and the videos you were talking about. Sorry, Karen, I took some notes and I was just looking, because I did the first talk on leadership and management, and one of the things that I did was I gave a presentation on things I would tell my 18-year-old self. And I looked back on my career and talked to them about the experiences that I'd had, both positive and negative, and what was important. One of the things I talked to them about was it's okay to take time. Careers aren't built overnight, and sometimes we have to step back to step forward. And that was one of the things that we got a lot of feedback about, that people felt that they had been given permission to go on a journey and know that you don't have to move from A to B in a very prescribed period of time. So the leadership series we did has been really successful. And Lisa asked, I think Karen, was she going to continue the thing next year? We are planning series 2 of our leadership journey for next year, because it was really successful. And each time we had over 60 nurses engaging in this Zoom call on a wet and windy, wintry Thursday evening in New Zealand, and the feedback was really good. So that was sort of how we approached it. The second thing we've done, and we are going to go ahead with, even if we've still got social distancing in place, is we've created a conference day where we're bringing some eminent speakers from around the country to our head office in Hamilton and these nurses will come and they'll have the day with people listening to their experiences, having time to sort of understand the skills and knowledge that these people have and how they've got to where they've got to, really. And then the third thing we did, which I'm really proud of, was on International Nurses Day, we announced a $10,000 scholarship for a nurse to undertake a project related to improving equity, improving access, or making a difference in terms of chronic disease management. We've interviewed, we advertised it internally. We had a number of applicants. We've interviewed everybody, and I'll be very pleased to tell the successful applicant tomorrow, who is one of our nurses off our Nightingale Challenge programme, who's an under 35, that they have won the scholarship. But what I'm most proud of is this is a young nurse who was inspired by the series, who wants to go on and be a leader and will be a leader of the future. She's a very bright girl. She's a young Maori nurse. She will spend her project in a very rural and isolated community, taking the experiences and the knowledge that she's gained from the leadership series to work with this community in a different way, out on a marae, which is a Maori meeting house, meeting the needs of this rural, isolated population who don't seek access to primary care very often, and actually with ongoing coaching and mentoring will make a significant difference in the community. What we're hearing from our nurses is that's the sort of journey that they have now been inspired to go on. And so while we're a small network compared to large district general hospitals or, you know, large populations, these nurses that have been on this journey will make a difference for our communities. They work a lot in rural, isolated communities. They're not all in sort of metro cities. And their journey has inspired them to connect, to form links, but it's given them confidence to say, I want to do this as a nurse. I can work differently. I can make a difference to my population. For you as our leader, our nurse leader in the organisation, if you can coach and mentor me and support me, I know I can go on and do really good things. So for us, the journey, the Nightingale Challenge has spawned a significant piece of activity that I know will absolutely make a difference to rural populations, particularly to our under 35 nurses, but also not forgetting those that have been on the journey that are over 35 are also really connected with the younger nurses. They're also providing some support and advice, but they too will go on and make a difference to the populations that they're dealing with every day. So that's our small journey, really, and it feels humble compared to what we've heard, but it's been no less significant for us as I say, as a primary care network.
Oh, Jan, I'm humbled to hear all of this fantastic work, and I think it's great to have that primary care rural perspective, because of course I think it links back to the image, doesn't it, of nursing and what they do. They don't just work in hospitals, so it's so important we hear about this important work that nurses do in communities, rural and remote as well. And one of the ambitions of the Nightingale Challenge was for it to be an opportunity for employers to not only enable young nurses to step up to the plate, really, but also to talent spot. And it strikes me with the scholarship, you've almost been talent spotting to identify really who is your rising star that you can get behind. So that's a really good case study. It would be great to learn more about that. And whenever you get a moment to maybe submit information to Nursing Now about it, because it's a really good example, I think, of how you've been able to do that. I'm really interested in the content of the programme, sort of the policy, the innovation, the communication, the leadership and the role modelling. I'm assuming these nurses on the 35 and under are pretty newly qualified. I'm just wondering, are you working with the university pre-registration programme, and is there a need to start looking back the other way? So when they qualify, they actually come out with some of these skills that perhaps in many of the curriculums of pre-reg nursing aren't terribly dominant, or do you think actually it's right to do it once people are qualified, because there's so much to learn as a nurse, and let's be honest, you never stop learning anyway, do you? What do you think, Jen? Have you had conversations with your pre-registration academic colleagues?
I'm really pleased you've asked me that, because one of the other things I've been doing is working with the University of Waikato, who are just going through the process of setting up a new Bachelor of Nursing program. And we've been instrumental in working with them, because what we're saying is New Zealand's just had a major health review called the Simpson Report, and what it's saying is care will be given much more in communities, and we need to start the process now of actually moving more care to the communities. One of the things that we've been working with the university is what would a nurse look like that came out of their undergraduate nursing course that is prepared to work in communities. And so we've worked on the program. There's 4 core elements to it. They'll have a much longer in clinical practice in each year. They will have 4 major experiences, one around hospital, which has been a predominant part of every nursing course. They'll have a primary and community care component in year 1, 2, and 3. They'll have a mental health nursing component in year 1, 2, and 3. And they will also have a Maori health, Indigenous population health and wellness component in year 1, 2, and 3, because we have a very large Maori population who seek treatment late, and we don't serve them well. They're very underserviced and have poor health outcomes. So actually, next week, I'm going with the University to Nursing Council to present and speak to, and we've got, fingers crossed, the universities have approved the programme, but Nursing Council has the final say. So it's quite exciting, really, and if we're successful, in 3 years' time, we will start to see nurses graduating from the programme who are prepared to work in primary community care, but they'll hit the ground running in terms of their skills and knowledge, because we don't have time to teach them all of these things post-registration, and then they don't always have the interest. So so can I just leave you, I thought it might be quite nice. I just got a little Maori proverb that I think sums up, I guess, for our under 35s, but for all of us, and it says, kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa pūnamo tu moana, kia tere ki karahiri, I mua I tu huarahi. And what it means is, may the calm be widespread, may the ocean glisten as greenstone, and may the shimmer of light ever dance across your pathway. And I think for us as nurses, that's what we bring to everybody, whoever we're looking after. So just wanted to leave that with you. Thank you.
Perfect. That's absolutely perfect. I wish it's morning here for me in England. I wish I could start my mornings every day in this way. I feel so uplifted and energized by what I'm hearing. It's fantastic to see all of this enthusiasm, innovation, and different thinking around how we support nurses and help to develop them to be those leaders that the patients and the local communities need. So thanks again, Jan, so much. We now actually come to England, to Roisin, who has been a friend and a colleague of mine for some time now. Roisin, really delighted to have you here, and you've got a bit of a tough act to follow with what we've heard, but I know that you'll step up to that challenge beautifully. Can you tell us all that's been going on with yourselves, Guy's and St Thomas's, and the fantastic partnerships that you've started to foster as well with other countries? So over to you, Roisin. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you so much. And absolutely, this is I've got a very hard act to follow. I'm going to share my screen because I've got some photos just to capture things that have been going on over the year, but I will share my screen so that you can all see what we have been doing at Guy's and St Thomas's. So I'm just going to start the slideshow now. So if I just introduce myself, so thank you, Lisa, thank you Nursing Now for giving me the opportunity to talk about what we've been doing at Guy's and St Thomas's. So if I just introduce myself, so my name is Roisin Fitzsimons and I'm head of the Nightingale Academy. We're very lucky that we are able to build on Florence's legacy. So Florence Nightingale had her first school of nursing at St Thomas's, and we are very, very proud of this history. So every year we celebrate on the 12th of May or thereabouts Florence's birthday, and we have our own celebration each year. This year, of course, was meant to be the absolute pinnacle, and we were building up to it for many, many months beforehand, and it turned out to be quite different from what we had expected. So Guy's and St Thomas's is a trust which is it's a very integrated trust. Actually, we have a number of sites, and this is the St Thomas's site, and I'm showing you this because we are well placed to influence across the nation as we are opposite the Houses of Parliament. We've got, so we have 2 acute sites, a number of community sites, and we also have a children's hospital, which is a brand new and very shiny glass building just behind St Thomas's Hospital there. So we have, as I said, we have over 7,000 nurses and midwives within the organisation. So trying to devise a programme that would capture everybody and be right for everybody is actually a challenge in itself. So like many of my colleagues who have already spoken this morning about their fantastic work, we've got a number of projects which we run for, or leadership and professional development opportunities that we run for colleagues across the organisation. We had already established a department leaders programme for those in managerial roles, coming into their first managerial roles, such as ward manager, or within the community, team leaders. And the Nightingale Challenge was really the challenge to us to step up and do something a little bit different. I've just got some photos here of how we celebrate Nurses Day. So this year we had to do things a little bit different, but we have we've got a chapel within the hospital. And this is just a picture of the service that we held in the chapel, and one of our nurses taking a very big cake to her ward to celebrate for all the nurses. So we really do like to think that even though we have 7,000 nurses and midwives across the organisation, we are an inclusive organisation. And we really like to celebrate our successes, and we do this every year. So one of the programs that we have is the Nightingale Nurse and Midwife Award, which was set up with the award that Florence used to give to her the nurses who remained with her for a year after training, and they would receive a special badge and they would receive the title of Nightingale Nurse. So we've introduced this for modern day Nightingales, and we love to celebrate the success of this and our leadership programmes and the success of all of our nurses, whatever they've achieved throughout the year on the 12th of May, as I mentioned. So thinking more to what we were thinking about doing for the Nightingale Challenge. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the year, very similar to what I've heard already, we were looking at how do we support the development of those leaders for the future. So as Jan mentioned, the under 35s didn't quite sit well with me, because one of my items I lead within my portfolio is equality, diversity and inclusion. So it didn't feel so right that we were excluding people who were over 35, but we made it work, because actually what we discovered was that there was a niche within nurses and midwives across the organisation, in our sort of those that had been qualified maybe 2 to 3 years. They were it's called band 6 in England. So commonly it's those nurses and midwives who've been qualified for about 2 or 3 years. They've worked on a ward or in a role for that long, and they're looking for something different. But these are the nurses that we were aiming this programme at. And we were thinking about how can we engage and what can we do for them that will be a little bit different. We really wanted to focus on helping them to think about their career, where they were going in future. And we wanted to really engage with our senior leaders across the organisation and those nurses that had been nursing for many years, because they had so much advice that they were able to share and give. So we wanted to engage them in the Nursing Now Nightingale Challenge, and we did so by offering a buddy system where junior nurses would buddy with more senior nurses. So not only, but that the learning would be bi-directional, actually. A little bit of reverse mentoring was going on, in that actually it was really important that our nurses that had been nursing for quite some time were able to learn what Generation Z, what was important for them. And we know that there's a number of things: continuing education, support through the team, and managerial relationships actually is really, really important. And that's something that has come, and I'll talk about in a little minute, because that's something that we've really begun to understand a lot more during COVID. So that sort of set the scene as to where we were up to. and what our plans were for the Nightingale Challenge within our organisation. And that was at the beginning of sort of February, March time. And then, of course, COVID hit. And the last 6 months have just thrown us completely up in the air. I wasn't really sure where we were going with this, but actually our leadership's development just sort of iterated itself and unfolded throughout the COVID period and the challenges that we were being faced with. So I want to talk about one of our nurses in particular, Beth. And the reason why I'm talking about her is because she typifies the group of nurses that we were developing a programme for, the Leaders for the Future programme. So Beth had been nursing for about 4 years, and she'd been in the same position. She'd been in the same ward for all of that time since she qualified. She had been unsuccessful in a number of interviews for promotions, and she was really becoming despondent. She had joined up to the Nightingale Challenge, and because she was at that stage looking for, where do I go now, what's next with my career, and actually, is nursing still for me? We need to, when COVID began, we were a HSID centre, so a high consequence infectious disease centre, and very rapidly we needed to open a ward overnight. We looked to Beth to become that ward manager, to give her an opportunity. We knew she had the qualities, we knew she was looking for that stretch, so we asked her to step up, which she did. She took on the opportunity with relish, and we supported her with some senior leadership, coaching and mentoring, and regular support to open up that ward. She opened the ward within over a weekend. A team came from nowhere, and she really established that team to become a really high performing team. And when we closed down the ward approximately 3 months later, the team was such a cohesive team. The feeling that you got when you walked on the ward, you knew it was a really well performing ward, and patients got the absolute best of care. And it was all down to, and the staff on the ward, the team on the ward would all say it's down to Beth's leadership. Now, I'm sure that was something to do with the innovation of just putting everyone together, but she certainly had qualities, and actually giving her that opportunity really made a huge difference and showed us the art of the possible, what is possible with the right support, the right leadership, but also enough agency to really get on and do with what you can. But that really got us thinking about what support is needed for our Generation Z nurses of today. As I've said, education is important, but also it's that managerial and line manager support. So we have tweaked, we've iterated and pivoted our offer of leadership support for our nurses and midwives across the organisation in line with the Nightingale Challenge. And now what we are looking at, we have had to change, and as many of you have alluded to, we are using virtual platforms for the delivery of the majority of our all of our education and leadership development programmes. We've come up with a 10-week online, again, it sounds very similar to what Jan was mentioning. We've come up with a 10-week online programme called Leadership Support Circles. And we're using this for our nurses to develop a cohort of nurses across the organisation to come together for an hour each week to discuss 10 leadership behaviours which will help them to develop compassionate leadership. And not only will it help them to lead teams, but also provide peer support as well. But this is really important because this is what we're hearing is what is needed for colleagues across the organisation. But why I'm also quite interested in this is because of the opportunities this affords us to link with communities across the world. I know many of our nurses were involved in the Facebook group and that was led by Nightingale Challenge, a community of practice that I think linked with Uganda and India, and they've really enjoyed being able to be involved with that. That's something really special. But I was also had discussions around the possibility of linking with other countries to provide some sort of joint learning where we can get young nurses together to discuss professional issues. We had initial conversations with Cambodia trying to set something up, and also Melbourne in Australia. So we've made some links across the world, as Lisa alluded to, which have been really quite inspiring, and the art of the possible. These conversations need to pick back up now. Now COVID is somewhat sort of quietened and calmed down, although we are looking in the UK at the wave too. But one of the other things I wanted to mention that has really come to the fore, and I think this is one of the things about the Nightingale Challenge, and actually I would say nursing and midwifery in general, is the ability to be really flexible and adaptable to the needs of our patients, but as we're thinking about it as nurse leaders, the needs of the development of our staff and our nurses and midwives. And so we have, possibly like everyone across the world, really been touched with the Black Lives Matter movement, and as I said, with my equality, diversity and inclusion hat on, this is something we are looking at across our organisation. So we've had a lot of engagement exercises with our colleagues from a Black, Asian, minority ethnic background, and there is a real gap in leadership positions from nurses within the organisation, but also across the country, from Black, Asian and minority ethnic background. So this is something we are really working to address. We have looked at developing, we're developing leadership programs specifically for nurses from a BAME background, and we're also at October, so in a couple of days' time, is Black History Month in the UK, and so we have got a lot of plans to support and really push the development and support of the development of nurses from a BAME background at Guy's and St Thomas's. We're also doing some career conversations. We're going to have some online webinars with career conversations, and we have we're updating our website as well to share some career stories where nurses from a BAME background can really shine and show how they have led nursing across the globe. And one of those nurses was Kefawolola Pratt, who was from Nigeria and was the first Black nurse to train at the Florence Nightingale School of Nursing and Midwifery back in the 60s. So she's a real icon, and she went on to be chief nurse of Nigeria and has really formed nursing in Nigeria. So we're really proud of our heritage. And I just want to finish up by showing you some pictures of how we celebrated Nurses Day, International Year of the Nurse and Midwife. So if you remember back, my first picture was St Thomas's and looking over at the Houses of Parliament. So this is what the Houses of Parliament looked like on the 12th of May this year. We absolutely influenced, because we shone a light on the Houses of Parliament to show how important nursing and midwifery is in the year 2020, and it was a beautiful light show, and this was it. So thank you very much, Lisa, and everyone.
Wow, thank you, Roshan. It's amazing to hear the progress you've made since the early conversations we had when we were just getting started, and I absolutely know where you were coming from, and I think many others, about this thing about 35 and under, and what about the rest? I mean, the rest of the workforce are absolutely crucial, but I think there is that niche, and we are losing, and many organisations talk about these early career nurses just being disengaged. They've had their university experience, they've done their preceptorship, it feels a long way to get to the next step for some. So I think, you know, the way that you've tackled it is brilliant. And we always said as well, it doesn't have to be under 35, but from the early days of us trying to get a groundswell, those were the numbers we would count. But do you know, the numbers have become irrelevant because we've got over 30,000 early career nurses and midwives signed up in over 78 countries. So we want to continue, but it's not where the emphasis is. I think we've clearly identified the need and the passion to do this. Roshan, I just want to ask you, I really like the leadership circles work, and they have to, your people have to identify 10 behaviours. What are the top three? Are there a top three set of leadership behaviours every time that keeps being kind of at the top of the leaderboard when you do this work?
Yeah, so actually, so this was some work we started off by working with actually NHS E&I, so the NHS England and Improvement. We got together to discuss this. This was the beginning of COVID, where we were really looking at the impact. There's a lot of work that we've been looking at around the psychological safety and psychological and emotional support needed for not only nurses and midwives actually, but for all multi-professions across the healthcare system. And we've been looking towards the military actually, who've done a lot of research there. So these were developed by NHS EI, and we were sort of part of the pilot and the development. So we have embraced these into the organisation. But yes, so there are 10 identified leadership behaviours, but it's very much about so the things that come up that really resonate with people are around it's sort of about giving permission to not be okay. It's okay to not be okay, creating space, acknowledging the hurt, but also being unauthentic, you know, really bringing your whole self as a leader, and the importance of the authenticity in leadership. So that you're showing yourself, and that shows the team that it's okay to not be okay, but then also be able to then, as a leader, how do you create conditions for people to be authentic but still perform, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So, yeah. Maintaining routines is one of them. So there are a number of different behaviours. There's the how do you create safe space? How do you look after yourself as well? That's the first one that we discuss. So the importance actually to really lead effectively, you need to be looking after yourself as well. It's that sort of that putting your oxygen mask on first. Yes. Unless you're okay, you can't look after other people. So
brilliant. Thank you, Roshan. I mean, if you feel you can, I think we would love to share the leadership circles and whatever emerging evidence base there is behind that. Because of, like you talked about with the global partnerships, sharing with other countries the work that we're doing and the richness that comes out of that from a diversity and inclusive perspective. And we had a Nursing Now board meeting last week, and the chief executive of the ICN said that this work and other work that he's obviously leading, global doesn't feel quite so far away now to many people. And I really resonate with that, because I feel that this has given us an opportunity to really build that global community that's close to us and that we can connect with. So if and when it's appropriate, we would love to have some literature around those leadership circles. I like that term actually, leadership circles as well, especially within the current climate. So thank you so very much. And again, I thought the image at the end, influence in Parliament, is a really good message to say, oi, you can't ignore us, we're here and we're here to stay. Listen up. Thanks so much as ever, Roisin, truly grateful.
Thanks, Lisa.
Now, last but absolutely not least, we go to Adela in Spain. Adela is one of our Nursing Now board members and has been with us from the very beginning and is doing amazing work across Spain and Europe wider as well. So Adela, over to you for the finale, please, if that's okay.
Thank you, Lisa, for inviting me to participate in this webinar. The purpose of my presentation is to explain a little bit about some experiences in Spain in relation to the Nightingale Challenge. So I want to share a presentation with all of you. So, it's taking a little bit of time. So here you have the presentation. Okay, Spain is a big country with over 47 million people, and we have about 290 nurses. In this picture, you can see our Ministry of Health, our President of Nursing Association, and another high level of ministers from Spain that were supporting Nursing Now campaign at the really beginning. So Spain is with the global context of challenges like COVID-19, as all of you know, but also we have other challenges like aging population and chronicity. And these challenges comes together with a really financial crisis that is impacting all of us, including healthcare. And this financial situation is coming also after 10 years of healthcare austerity, because our government didn't really support healthcare with new programs. So we really have special needs, like respond to healthcare needs of our population, but also we need reforms in healthcare system to promote cost-effective care models. The State of the World Nursing Report indicates that nursing in Spain is in a really difficult situation. You can see in this picture by the colors, we don't have the red color that is really a difficult situation, but we are in the lightest blue among all the blues, you know, like if we compare to the Nordic countries that have a very strong blue. What does it mean? That means that, as you can see in the figure at the bottom of this slide, in Spain, the amount of nurses that we have is very poor. We have a chronic shortage of nurses working in the hospitals. We have approximately 5.7 nurses per million population, when the average of the OECD countries is 8.8. So really we have a chronic shortage of nurses, and that's why nursing leadership is very important in Spain. And we have to increase the number of nurses in government positions, so those nurses will be the advocates for new changes in healthcare. And we have to educate and position those leaders at all levels. We in Spain are following all the recommendations of the Nightingale Challenge in terms of training, in terms of using technology and communication channels, in terms of using the evidence of results and cost-effective care of nursing. So most of our programs in Spain in terms of the Nightingale Challenge are focusing on education and mentoring. And I want to emphasize a few of those programs that really include seminars with leaders, visits to parliamentarians and politicians, meetings even with the Ministry of Health, and using our context of COVID-19 to really emphasize the need to invest in nursing and to include nurses, leaders in all decision-making roundtables. So I want to share with you 3 experiences, because we don't have much time today. The first one is developed by the National Directors of Nursing Association, and is in Spanish, but is the journey and of nursing leaders in Spain. This is a program that was built before COVID and includes 8 hours of online education plus 14 hours of formal presentation and 8 hours of individual mentoring programs. This is a program that is free for nurses around Spain, and as far as I know, up to date, they have about 200 nurses, young nurses registered in this program within the Nightingale Challenge. This is a national program, as you can see, and really is having a good impact because besides that, of course, we have other programs at the university level, master programs in nursing management, but I'm emphasizing in this presentation just those programs that were built on purpose for the Nightingale Challenge. Another program that is having really a great impact, not only in Spain, but also in other Spanish-speaking countries, is this one provided by Salus1. Salus1 is a new organization led by Carlos Valdespina, a young nurse, male nurse that is dedicating a lot of time to educate nurses with the new skills, especially the young generations. This is free of cost, is in Spanish. So far, they have included and they have already finished the program almost 7,000 nurses younger than 35 years of age. They provide webinars and they provide also short videos in terms of management and leadership. And so far, their platform had over 30,000 short videos visualizations. And as yesterday, I was told that this program has included nurses from 29 countries, and for instance, over 200 nurses in Mexico. So this is really a good sample of some of these activities being done in Spain in terms of emphasizing and supporting young nurses into nursing leadership. And we can see just a very small part of these experiences, but for instance, here in Barcelona, we have a public hospital called Hospital of Sant Pau that has over 600 years of history. It's a very well-known hospital. This hospital is very much involved in Nursing Now activities, especially in Nursing Now Challenge. All the nurses are really much participating in this program. You can see some pictures of their activities, and they have a program, especially program built for the Nightingale Challenge through the ACDE Association in Catalonia. And this program emphasizes the leadership components built upon competencies and evidence-based practice. The program has some classes where the nurses in small groups can debate their problems in terms of management and leadership. And then this program has also a clinical practice component where the young nurses can experience real world of the nurse managers in clinical areas, in hospitals, but also in primary care. So this is a very well-known program within Catalonia, and this hospital, Hospital de Sant Pau, has built all these components to empower young nurses into leadership and to mentor them really so they stayed within nursing management and leadership, because we have the situation that not many nurses want to get into management due to the working conditions that our managers have in terms not only payment but number of hours that they have to dedicate to their activities. So really this program is making a change in not only Hospital of Sant Pau, but in many other hospitals in Catalonia. And this is only a sample to really invest in nursing leadership, because the future of nursing depends upon us. Like Florence Nightingale mentioned, if we don't make progress every day, every week, we will go backwards. So really we take this legacy very seriously in Spain, and we want to go forward, and we want to have a better environment for our nurses leaders and for our nurses managers, so patient care will improve and also healthcare in our country. So really the importance of leadership in healthcare is clear. As nurses,